Hey there, it's Liban here from WeKnowGamers. Today we're with Ian from Codemasters. So Ian, why don't you introduce yourself and what you do?
So I'm Iain Smith. I'm associate producer on Grid 2.
Okay, so Grid 2, obviously the sequel to Grid 1. And one of the first things I wanted to ask was, for someone who hasn't really experienced the Grid series before, can you sum up what Grid is all about?
So really, really strongly, the thing that comes through the tagline for Grid 1 was "It's all about the race," and it's similarly with Grid 2. It's the race returns. Essentially, everything that we've done in the development process, everything that we've focused on, is to crystallize what it is to be a race driver, to have that racing experience. So whether it's the sensation of how the car feels when you drive around the tracks themselves. Everything that goes into it in terms of the atmosphere, the lighting, the crowds that are at the events, that build up to the race itself, making sure that everything just comes together to make the racing experience feel as good as it possibly can.
Okay, so I'm assuming that obviously each car will feel different depending on its stats or whatever engine part it has. Have these been fine-tuned even more for that sense of realism you were speaking about?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the cool thing about Grid is that we have this world of racing that feels very much like a legitimate motorsports world. It feels like everything in it is believable, and that the last thing we want to do is break the immersion for the player. You always want to feel like you're part of the race, and a big part of that is sort of doing our homework and our research. So the start of the handling design process basically comes down to getting the data from the manufacturers. So we talk to our manufacturer partners that are that we have in the game, and they'll send us sort of data like the specifications of the cars. Whether that's down to sort of every tiny nuance and detail, but things like the wheelbase, things like the stiffness of the suspension, and also we're getting CAD data from them to actually build the car itself and make it look correct. But then when the car handling designers come to work out how it should feel, that raw data sometimes just comes across as quite dry, quite sort of. We don't want to go too analytical with it. All of the data is there. There's over 400 parameters in our car handling system. But what we can do with those is actually emphasize the ones that we feel are really important to the player when they pick up the pads. So if we know that a car is very much is something that's definitely going to oversteer, it's got a lot of weight in the front or the back or whatever it may be, those characteristics are emphasized to the player, and then we actually get people who've driven the cars for real to help us assess whether or not it's feeling correct when it's in the game. So it's a multi-stage process that initially we'll have a car that's very sort of data-driven, it's very based on the specification. Then we try that out, we try and emphasize a couple of things, and then once we've had a chance to have a good play with it, we get somebody in who's played it. We're leveraging our good relationship with Chris Harris, who he's actually somebody that works with piston heads, and he's the person who goes out. He's got all those videos where he's like going sideways in the cars, and he has driven so many of the different cars that are in our game. So for him to come in and then say, yeah, well, that feels spot on, or actually what you might want to do is get some more understeer, or whatever it may be. If this car feels heavy when you arrive at the corner, or this is a completely unruly car, he can give us that feedback, and it really gives it that sort of touch of legitimacy, and actually it feels the way it should.
Okay, so you got the car sorted. They're tuned, they're ready. Now you're dealing with your environments and how they actually react, how the cars react to different surfaces. So how did you go along developing something like car tires are braking like on a wet road or gravel, things like that?
Actually, there's been a lot of work done. Part of the reason why Grid 2 has been such a long time coming is the fact that we really want to do that type of thing as much justice as possible. So we've developed a tire modeling system. Our car handling designer will be able to tell you a lot more detail about exactly how that works. But essentially, what it means is we're much more able to detect how pressures are applied across that tire, if weight's being distributed onto it, how that tire is connecting to the road. Because that's our only real connection with the road. The 4 points on the car that are actually touching the ground, and the data that comes up through the suspension, and then eventually to the player's controller, are the main sort of things that we have to actually translate. So modeling the tires was a big step forward for us. The other thing is that the physics model that all of the handling system is underpinned by is now running at 1,000 frames per second. So if you think about most games running at maybe 30 or 60 frames per second for consoles, what that means is that if their handling system is working if their physics system is only detecting at a similar number of frames, it means that if you're doing 150 down a road and you're covering so much ground so quickly, and it only refreshes incrementally along the road, then you're talking about meters of difference before anything's detected. What we've managed to do by getting 1,000 hertz refresh rate is that it's detecting that 1,000 times per second. So it means that any sort of rubble, if, say for example you go across cobbles or metal grates, or if you go across a manhole cover or something like that on a city street, you're going to feel absolutely everything exactly when it's important to you, when you might have to save the car, when you're going to feel the weight shift and things happening in the car, the weight shift and transfer. So that's a big step forward for us, definitely. I mean, it makes the car handling just that much more responsive and that much more realistic.
Okay, so while we're still on that subject of realism, clearly, like you said, Grid 2 took so long because of all the fine tuning and all the careful detail work you're trying to put into each and every car and each and every track. So would you consider using just a controller no longer really viable compared to, would you say that, you should really use an actual racing wheel when playing it?
I would tend not to say that. I mean, at its heart, Grid 2 is a controller experience, but those people that, the depth of the force feedback system that we've got and the amount of detail that I've just told you about allows us to be able to do, like what we did today. There's a bit of a showpiece on the Virgin Media stand, which was a Visaro D-Box, which is a pneumatic kit, which basically is a driver's seat that reacts to everything on the road. I'll throw you around, you get strapped in, and basically we've been getting players to play that all day today, and the fastest time the person's going to get their name put in the game as an opponent driver, so that's kind of cool. But I would tend to say that that's sort of more of a showpiece, or for the people that really, really want to play it that way. Grid 2 is a sort of controller experience, I think, that at its heart, certainly we're going to support as many different peripherals and wheels as possible, but I would say at its heart it's a controller experience, because we want every player who picks up the game to feel just exactly how great that handling is and how great it is to drive.
All right, well, thanks for talking with us, Ian. So when can we expect Grid 2?
So it's going to be available on PC, PS3 and Xbox 360, and it's going to be next summer, so summer 2013.
And where can the fans of Grid get more information on the game or keep up to date with the updates?
You just go to gridgame.com, and also if you follow us on Twitter, you can hashtag with hashtag Grid2 or hashtag The Race Returns. Okay, well, that's Grid 2. Thanks again to Ian for speaking with us. Subscribe to the WeKnowGamersTv channel for more videos, more content, and we'll see you later.